You know, it's a dangerous thing when a man wraps himself in holy garments just to hide the dirt underneath. When a man uses the pulpit not to raise the people, but to pacify them. When a man speaks of God, but walks hand in hand with devils. See, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. When you see the house burning, and you know who struck the match, but you keep your mouth shut, that makes you just as guilty as the one holding the flame. I didn't go on that broadcast to start a war. I went on there to tell the truth, because too many of our people have been dying in the dark while someone tells them it's the light. They call themselves ministers, but minister to who? They minister to power. They minister to popularity. They minister to the illusion of peace while they feast at the same table as the ones who poisoned our communities. That's not a minister. That's a mascot for the system. Now, I didn't point fingers on national television because of hate. I did it out of love for my people. Because too many of our brothers and sisters are still sleeping in gutters while some so-called spiritual shepherds live like kings. Because while the children of the ghetto dig through trash to eat, these ministers fly across the country in silk suits, blessing the same politicians who lock our people up and gun our youth down. You think I was supposed to stay quiet just because someone wears a title? Titles don't mean truth. Positions don't prove purity. There are ministers who've sold their souls for platforms. And if you think I'm going to respect a man more than I respect justice, you don't know what I'm made of. That broadcast wasn't about shame, it was about exposure. Because when someone takes advantage of the people's trust, that's not just betrayal, that's treason. And treason must be named, no matter how high the collar sits on the neck. Calling out false prophets is not betrayal. It's necessary for the survival of truth. Throughout history, those who have dared to challenge the status quo, who've had the courage to confront hypocrisy cloaked in righteousness, have been labeled as traitors, agitators, or troublemakers. But the truth is this: exposing deception is an act of devotion to the people. When a so-called leader, a self-declared guide of the people, uses their platform to deceive, to manipulate, or to serve themselves instead of their community, then silence is not an option. It is a crime against justice. These false prophets may wrap themselves in scripture. They may quote holy books, speak in sacred tones, and wear the garments of tradition. But if their actions betray the very principles they preach, then they must be confronted boldly and publicly. There's a sickness in the spirit of any movement when it begins to protect individuals over principles. When a leader becomes untouchable, when no one dares question them because of the aura they've built around themselves, then corruption takes root and festers in silence. A false prophet thrives in this silence. They thrive when good men bite their tongues. They thrive when the people are trained to worship charisma over character. These individuals often know how to speak the language of the oppressed while dining with the oppressor. They play both sides of the fence, talking revolution in public and signing deals with the enemy in private. They pacify the masses with hope while enriching themselves behind closed doors. And yet when someone dares to point this out, to shine a light on the deception, it is that person who is seen as the villain. But the truth cannot be silenced by fear of backlash. It cannot be silenced by tradition. And it certainly cannot be silenced by loyalty to a man. The truth is not loyal to titles, to fame, or to the image of unity. The truth stands on its own, unshaken by the waves of controversy. So when a man sees lies being preached in the name of liberation, when he sees power being abused under the guise of divine purpose, then he has not just the right, but the obligation to speak out. Because if we allow falsehood to sit unchallenged in the seat of leadership, we do not have a movement, we have a cult. It is important to understand the damage that a false prophet does to the community. They don't just deceive, they delay liberation. They poison trust. They cause confusion. They turn the people against each other with lies disguised as lessons. They protect their own status by making martyrs of those who challenge them. They create a climate where dissent is treated as betrayal and blind loyalty is celebrated as strength. This isn't just dangerous, it is deadly. A people who cannot distinguish between a true leader and a false prophet are a people walking toward destruction with open eyes. And so, when the truth is spoken, it will always offend the liar. When the mask is pulled off, the face beneath will always cry fall. But that should never stop the hand from pulling. Because the longer the mask stays on, the more damage it does. The more people it deceives, the more youth it misguides, the more elders it manipulates. Calling it out is not about ego. It's not about revenge. It's about accountability. It's about saying, not in our name. It's about protecting the soul of the movement from those who would sell it for comfort, power, or praise. This kind of truth-telling does not come easy. It will cost you your seat at the table. It will cost you your popularity. It may even cost you your safety. But it is the cost of conviction. It is the price paid by every genuine revolutionary who refused to play nice with hypocrisy. The false prophet counts on your silence. They count on your fear. They count on your loyalty to them being greater than your loyalty to justice. But the moment you flip the script, the moment you say enough, their whole empire starts to shake. People will ask why you expose them so publicly. They will say, why not deal with this privately behind closed doors? But what they forget is that the deception was public. The lies were broadcast. The manipulation was televised. When someone uses the public stage to spread poison, the antidote must also be delivered in public. Because the people deserve to see who's been leading them and where. They deserve to know the difference between a shepherd and a salesman, between a revolutionary and a performer, between a prophet and a fraud. Too often we see our communities follow leaders who look the part but don't live the principles. They shout about justice, but they serve injustice. They speak against oppression, but only when it benefits their image. They smile for cameras, but turn cold to those who confront them. Their loyalty is not to the people, but to power. And if power ever requires them to sacrifice the truth, they do so without hesitation. These are the ones who must be exposed, not for sport, not for clout, but because if they are allowed to remain, they become the rot within the foundation. Every movement has faced this challenge, and every movement that overcame it did so because someone dared to speak. Someone chose truth over comfort. Someone loved the people enough to risk their own safety, their own position, their own acceptance. That kind of courage is rare but necessary, because nothing grows in poisoned soil. No liberation can rise on the back of a lie, and no people can truly be free if their leaders are bound by the chains of ego, greed, or fear. That is why exposing the false prophet is not betrayal. It is the highest form of loyalty to the people and the truth. Titles and religious authority mean nothing without integrity and service to the people. The power of a title lies not in its sound, but in its substance. You can call yourself anything you want, reverend, minister, bishop, imam, rabbi, prophet, but none of it carries weight if the life you live stands in contradiction to the truth you preach. A title should be a reflection of commitment, not a costume worn to impress. Too many people today confuse titles with righteousness, robes with holiness, and sermons with sacrifice. But righteousness cannot be dressed up. Holiness isn't announced, it's lived. A man who serves the people doesn't need to be called anything. The people feel his presence before they hear his title. His service is his sermon. His sacrifice is his scripture. But what we're seeing too often is the rise of spiritual celebrities. Individuals who walk into rooms expecting worship, who carry themselves with a false humility that masks deep pride. They demand loyalty while giving none. They preach accountability to the masses but avoid it themselves. They speak of God but serve their ego. And when their actions are questioned, they point to their position as proof of their purity. But no position can excuse corruption. No title can hide exploitation. When a man uses his spiritual position to silence dissent, to protect his misdeeds, or to elevate himself above the people he's supposed to serve, he's not a leader. He's a tyrant wearing a cross. Service means sacrifice. It means putting the people before your image. It means speaking truth even when it costs you favor. It means walking with the poor, not just preaching to them from balconies. It means feeling the pain of your community in your own bones. And if you've never lifted the burdens of your people, if you've never stood between them and the boot of oppression, if you've never turned down luxury to stay grounded in your mission, then what authority do you really have? A man who has tasted nothing but comfort cannot guide a people who live in struggle. A man who only knows privilege cannot speak to the realities of poverty. The pulpit is not a throne, it's not a stage. It's not a spotlight for the performance of morality. It's a place of responsibility. A sacred ground where the truth must stand naked and unashamed. When you take that role, you take on the weight of the people's trust. You speak not for yourself, but for the voiceless. You represent not your own ambitions, but the aspirations of the community. And if you cannot carry that burden without exploiting it, then you don't deserve the role. The harm done by those who betray their positions is greater than the harm done by those who never believed in the cause at all. Because a traitor within the house causes more damage than the enemy outside the door. Religious authority is one of the most powerful forces on earth. It shapes minds, it moves nations, it binds communities. But when it is misused, it also becomes one of the most dangerous. A corrupt leader with a microphone is more dangerous than a soldier with a gun. Because while the soldier uses force, the leader manipulates faith. And when faith is manipulated, people will accept their own oppression in the name of righteousness. They will walk into their chains thinking they are walking into salvation. That is the deception that must be challenged. That is the manipulation that must be called out. It's not an attack to question leadership. It's not rebellion to demand integrity. In fact, it is the duty of every conscious person to hold leaders accountable, especially those who claim divine backing. Because when God is invoked, the standard must be higher, not lower. Too many hide behind religion to avoid responsibility. They say, touch not the anointed. But being anointed doesn't mean being untouchable. In fact, being anointed means you must be more transparent, more humble, more answerable to the people you claim to serve. The danger isn't in questioning authority. The danger is in accepting authority without question. Blind faith is a tool of manipulation. It is how tyrants become kings and how kings become gods in the eyes of the people. But no man is God. No man should be beyond accountability. And no one who serves the people should fear scrutiny, because the truth doesn't flinch under light. Only lies do. Only deception needs the shadows to thrive. You can build a temple, but if you fill it with hypocrisy, it becomes a prison. You can build a movement, but if the foundation is ego, it will collapse. The people must stop measuring leaders by how loud they speak or how well they dress. We must begin to measure by how deeply they serve, how selflessly they act, and how consistently they sacrifice. A title may open a door, but it's character that determines what you do once you step inside. And if a man enters with no purpose but his own promotion, then he does more damage than 1,000 enemies. We are at a point in history where clarity is needed more than charisma, where action matters more than appearance. The people don't need another celebrity leader. They need servants. They need truth tellers. They need those who will speak not to be applauded but to awaken, not to be followed blindly, but to inspire critical thought. A true spiritual guide never tells people what to think. He teaches them how to think for themselves, how to liberate their minds from control, and how to live in dignity, even in struggle. That's the measure of leadership. That's the essence of authority. And if a man cannot provide that, then his title means nothing. His robe means nothing. His following means nothing. Authority without integrity is a weapon in the hands of the oppressor, even when that oppressor looks like one of us. Silence in the face of internal corruption is complicity in the oppression of the community. When we see a wrong committed within our own house and choose to look away, we don't just ignore the problem, we become part of it. There is no excuse, no holy scripture, no loyalty to tradition that can justify turning a blind eye when our leaders betray the people. It doesn't matter how long someone has been in power. It doesn't matter how many titles they've earned or how many sermons they've given. If they are using their position to exploit rather than uplift, to manipulate rather than guide, then it is our duty, not our option, to speak up. Because oppression doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears a robe. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it preaches freedom with one hand while stealing it with the other. The most dangerous enemy is not always the one outside. It's the one who knows our language, who walks among us, who claims to fight for us while working only for himself. And when we protect that kind of enemy out of fear, out of misplaced loyalty, or out of the illusion of unity, we don't just lose the battle, we lose our soul. A movement cannot grow in soil poisoned by silence. It cannot thrive when the truth is hidden for the sake of image. If we allow internal rot to spread unchecked, the entire structure collapses from within. And when that collapse comes, it is not the enemy who brought it down. It is the silence of those who knew better but said nothing. There are many who see the signs. They hear the rumors, they witness the contradictions, they sense the shift from service to self-glorification, from humility to arrogance, from compassion to control. But they stay quiet. They tell themselves it's not their place to speak. They worry about damaging the movement. They convince themselves that the greater good is worth a few minor evils. But evil never stays minor. It grows. It festers. It spreads its roots until it wraps around everything we thought was sacred. And by the time it's exposed, the damage is already done. Silence is not neutral. It is never neutral. It always sides with power. When abuse happens behind closed doors, silence is the lock on the door. When lies are spread from a platform, silence is the microphone. When a leader betrays his people for personal gain, silence is the accomplice that helps him get away with it. That silence may come from fear. It may come from comfort. It may come from confusion. But the result is the same. The people suffer while the corrupt thrive. Too often we've been taught that loyalty means protecting leadership at all costs. That raising concerns is divisive. That asking questions makes you a threat. But what is unity worth if it's built on dishonesty? What kind of movement are we defending if it can't withstand the truth? A healthy body does not fear diagnosis. A healthy leadership does not fear accountability. In fact, a real leader welcomes it. Because a real leader serves the people, not his own reputation. There is a long tradition in oppressed communities of protecting the image of our leaders. We feel that the enemy is already attacking us from every direction, so the least we can do is defend our own. But there's a difference between defending a person and defending the principles they are supposed to stand for. If someone violates those principles, they are no longer acting on behalf of the people, and defending them only prolongs the harm. It teaches the next generation that titles matter more than truth, that silence is the path to survival, that justice is optional when it's inconvenient. That's how cycles of abuse continue. That's how corrupt figures rise to untouchable heights, not just because of their actions, but because of the silence that surrounds them. That silence becomes a wall that protects wrongdoing. It becomes a culture. It becomes a code of fear and secrecy that suffocates real progress. And every time someone tries to speak up, they're told to stay quiet for the sake of unity, for the sake of peace. But there is no peace in a house built on lies. There is no unity when the foundation is rotting from within. Some say, handle it quietly. Don't air our dirty laundry. But dirty laundry left in the dark doesn't get clean. It just stinks up the whole house. The people deserve to know the truth about those who claim to lead them. They deserve transparency. They deserve honesty. And if a leader truly loves his people, he will not hide behind silence. He will face the truth head on. He will acknowledge mistakes. He will correct them publicly. He will hold himself to the same standard he preaches to others. But when he refuses, when he dodges questions, when he silences dissenters, when he punishes truth tellers, he is no longer serving the people. He is serving himself. And anyone who remains silent in that moment becomes a co-signer of that betrayal. You cannot claim to fight for justice in the streets while protecting injustice in your own ranks. You cannot stand against oppression while enabling it behind the scenes. The two are incompatible. The silence becomes a shield for hypocrisy. History will not remember the titles. It will not remember the applause. It will remember who spoke up when it mattered. It will remember who remained quiet when the people needed courage. It will remember who chose comfort over confrontation. And in that judgment, silence will speak louder than words. Not every voice has the same volume, but every silence has an impact. Every moment we choose not to speak, we reinforce the very systems we claim to oppose. And if we cannot clean our own house, we have no right demanding that the world change. Internal corruption cannot be ignored, excused, or hidden behind tradition. It must be rooted out, exposed, and confronted loudly, clearly, and unapologetically. Exposing betrayal within the movement is an act of love, not division. Too many times, those who speak the truth are accused of tearing the movement apart, when in reality, the division already exists. It's just been hidden, buried under layers of silence, pride, and fear. Calling out betrayal doesn't create the fracture, it reveals it. And what is revealed can be healed. But what remains hidden continues to rot the core. When someone inside the house poisons the well, it is not hate to tell the family. It is an act of care. It is an act of responsibility. Love for the people demands the courage to confront those who harm them, even when those doing the harm look like allies, speak the same language, wear the same clothes, and stand on the same stage. The problem is that some have confused comfort with unity. They think as long as no one speaks out, the house is whole. But silence doesn't hold anything together. It just hides the cracks. And those cracks grow wider with time, not narrower. It is the truth that brings healing. Truth that makes repair possible. The kind of love that builds strong movements is not sentimental. It's disciplined. It's principled. It's willing to say the hard thing, not because it wants to destroy, but because it wants to purify. It wants to protect what matters most. When someone betrays the mission, whether through greed, ego, manipulation, or cowardice, that betrayal cannot be ignored. Looking away is not kindness, it's negligence. You cannot build liberation on a foundation of lies. If there's betrayal in the leadership, in the strategy, in the vision, and no one has the backbone to call it out, then the people suffer. They are missiled. They are used. They are made pawns in someone else's game. And when they finally wake up and realize what's been done in their name, they are left disillusioned, angry, and vulnerable. That kind of collapse doesn't happen because someone told the truth. It happens because the truth was hidden for too long. Exposing the betrayal is not the enemy. It's the antidote. It's what allows the movement to correct course before it crashes. Without correction, there is no progress. Without exposure, there is no accountability. Some say, keep the conflict behind closed doors. Don't let the world see us argue. But what does it say to the world when we hide our sickness instead of healing it? What does it say to the people we claim to serve when we choose image over integrity? We teach by example. If we let betrayal go unchecked, we tell the youth that power is more important than principle. That loyalty to a person outweighs loyalty to justice. That silence is a virtue and courage is a sin. But a movement that punishes truth tellers and rewards silence is not a movement for liberation. It's a machine for control. And the people were not born to be controlled. The real love, the kind that transforms a people, demands confrontation. It demands the bravery to say, this is not right, and I will not pretend it is. It demands the maturity to understand that criticism is not always attack. That holding someone accountable is not the same as abandoning them. That questioning leadership is not the same as betraying it. In fact, it is those who stay quiet in the face of betrayal who betray the people. It is those who know better but say nothing who sell out the future. The loudest betrayal is often spoken in silence. When someone dares to speak the truth about what's happening inside the movement, they don't do it to hurt the cause. They do it because they believe in the cause. They do it because they refuse to let something so sacred be hijacked by ego and corruption. They do it because they understand that protecting the people matters more than protecting titles. That the mission matters more than the men. That principle must always come before popularity. Exposing betrayal is painful, yes. It can shake people, it can divide the room, it can cause tension. But it also clears the air, it lets the poison out. It makes room for something real to grow in its place. There's a lie that says unity means never disagreeing. But real unity is forged in struggle, in honesty, in the willingness to wrestle with uncomfortable truths. Real unity doesn't fear correction, it demands it. Real unity knows that betrayal left unchallenged becomes policy, that the longer you ignore a lie, the deeper its roots grow, and by the time the people see the truth for themselves, it's too late to fix what's been broken. That's why silence is so dangerous. That's why the whistleblower is not the enemy, but the protector. It's easy to praise someone when they uplift your image. It's harder to praise the one who tells you what you don't want to hear. But that person is doing more for the movement than any flattery ever could, because they are fighting for its soul. They are saying, I care too much to let this go unchallenged. They are willing to lose friends, to lose status, to lose favor, because the truth matters that much. That's not division, that's love in its most radical form. Love that tells the truth, love that takes risks, love that won't stay quiet while the people are being lied to. The betrayal inside a movement is more dangerous than any threat outside, because it uses the language of liberation while practicing domination. It wears the mask of solidarity while working for self-interest. And when that mask is ripped off, there will always be those who scream, traitor. But the real traitor is the one who wore the mask, not the one who removed it. The one who points it out is doing what every healthy movement requires, purging the poison before it spreads. That kind of truth-telling doesn't weaken the people. It strengthens them. It shows them what to watch for. It teaches them how to defend their future from within as well as from without. Let the betrayers be exposed. Let the truth be uncomfortable. Let the discomfort birth something stronger. Because in the end, the movement will not rise because we protected its image. It will rise because we protected its integrity. And integrity demands that we call betrayal by its name, even when it comes from those we once called brothers.